Welcome to our budget meeting with the Acton School Department. The school committee and the Warrant and Finance Committee is here to join us. And before we start tonight, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn the meeting right over to our superintendent, who's presenting the budget for us tonight.
Thank you, Judy. So what I thought is, we'll do the introductions in a moment, and if you want to think about it before I get going, it's going to be what's your favorite food before you introduce it.
Gosh.
But what I want to do is...
How much time do you have?
Gonna narrow it down to one thing, Terry. We're going to look at nutrition. We're going to look at nutrition and Article 2, which is the bulk of our teachers, Article 2. And then after that, I thought I'd just kind of open it. We haven't seen each other for a little while. And just want to see if you have any questions or where we're at. And I can also go over the timeline and where I think we're going to meet the timeline, no problem at all. And I can talk to you a little bit about where we're heading, depending on what your questions are, how much I can say at where we are. Because some of it's personnel matters, but I'll explain any questions that you might have. So these articles won't take long. And with that, I guess, why don't we start here with you, Leslie, and go this way so I'm last. What's your favorite food? And tell us who you are.
Leslie Berlin, Morton Finance. That's tough because my husband missed his calling and he should have been a chef. I've worked in 5-star restaurants and hotels and eat better at home. So this is really, really tough. If I had to pick one thing that I could eat all of the time, it would have to be an all-day spaghetti sauce. I could eat it every day and never get tired of it.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll be over for dinner at your place as soon as you let us know what time. Tell them we're coming. Thank you, Leslie.
Steve Ike, Warrant and Finance, and his braised short rib.
What is it? What?
Braised.
Those are good too.
Steve, there you go.
Yeah.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, I used to get it up at Willie's, but then I started making it at home, and I'd rather have it at home.
There you go. All right.
They do make a good one at Willie's, though.
Yeah.
No, Willie's, yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Lori Woods, Warrant Finance. I would say haddock and roasted veggies.
There you go. Had fish last night.
Mm,
Yeah.
Favorite.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy.
Joe Ruma.
Ruma.
I'm lucky to have a fairly well-adapted wife who can cook.
That's good.
So I really can't say what my favorite is. I personally like salads. And,
Okay.
but she's constantly reading new recipes and innovating. And I always say to her, "Do you remember when you used to make the chili the way it is? Why did you do this here?" Well, I'm experimenting. But, I'm very fortunate to, as you can see, I'm not skin and bones.
All right, Joe. Thank you.
Dennis Long, I guess my favorite food would be what I eat the most of, right?
Huh?
And that's peanut butter,
There you go. A staple.
every day.
Perfect. There's always some kind of peanut butter will show up at some point from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. It'll
Yep.
show up. Very good. If I ever need any, I know where I can go down to Flat Ground Road and get some.
If there's any left.
Yeah.
What brand do you eat?
I don't know what brand.
They're all
Chunky?
different. They're all different.
Jiffy?
Is it chunky or smooth?
No, smooth.
And here I was thinking this would be the fastest one that I've now we're doing Jif or Peanut Buddy Chunky. All right. John?
John Dennekamp. I guess my favorite would have to be really good Thai.
Where's the nearest here? Sanford?
It isn't.
I don't. Yeah, I don't
The one
know.
in Springvale is,
There's a good one in Milton.
Okay.
okay.
haven't been
The
to the
one
one
in
in Milton.
Springvale is good,
Okay.
and it's not good. So it depends on what night you go.
Okay. That's right across from Walgreens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been different restaurants. Okay.
Well, excuse me a minute, everybody. Leslie,
I started my spaghetti sauce at 10:30 this morning, and it's still on the stove.
Oh. And it's better, it's gotta be all day, it can't be
It's gotta be all
a
day.
quickie
But
sauce.
my favorite food is Dover sole, cooked in parchment with butter.
Oh,
Boy.
What?
so
Yeah, sole, but Dover sole. Dover
I
sole.
don't know.
The fish.
it's fish.
Yeah, I know it's a fish,
Yeah.
but
I
the
get it
way
down
you,
in Dover in the river.
I was waiting for,
I have to get it now.
where do you get that stuff? I mean,
down in Dover in the river.
Dover in the river.
oh,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know what your favorite food is. We work together all the time. What is it?
We don't eat much around.
We really don't. A job's the best diet you can have.
It's dry peanut butter. A lot of people seem to like it.
Yes, yeah. Paula Lantang, finance director, Haddock.
Ah,
oh, that's good.
that's why you like the Dover's whole too. Okay.
Terry Minahan, School Committee. My absolute favorite thing in the world is chicken. I just
Doesn't
love a
matter.
roast chicken. In fact, just ate a leg as I was running out of the house.
Is there a one-legged chicken running around out there? You're gonna get a feather on your chin.
It's not running, John, it's
That's
hot.
off. One-legged chickens don't run. Wait a minute. Good, well done.
CJ Gardner, School Committee, and I love breakfast. I will do a bacon, egg, and cheese on a New York round roll all the time.
Awesome.
You can't get the same kind of roll anywhere north of Central Connecticut. It
Okay.
just doesn't exist.
Do you have a way of getting them? Do you get them
They
online?
ship-
or you get
they
them
ship-
out?
No, I just they don't last in the freezer like
Yeah.
bagels do.
Yeah.
So I just get them when we're at my parents' house.
Perfect.
Yep.
Amanda Cobb, School Committee. I don't know, I'll just make something up. I mean, it's food, food's food.
Food's an answer.
I don't, like, you guys all did meals, you know?
Yeah.
Like an apple straight off the tree.
Perfect.
great.
That's
Yeah.
food.
I love that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wipe it off.
Yep.
eat
A little
it, there
warm
you
from the
go.
sun.
Yeah.
Annette Burr School Committee. I live on chicken and chocolate ice cream.
Sounds good.
And a half a peanut butter sandwich at 11 o'clock for lunch.
11 o'clock.
Jif.
Dennis
Well,
will be over.
That's when I'm leaving the house around 11. I'll take a half a peanut butter sandwich with me. But other than that, I don't,
There you go.
I eat chicken all the time.
Perfect.
There's not very much that I
Yeah.
don't like, but my favorite is ice cream.
Yeah.
And it was ice cream before I married Rod Shane. It was ice cream for a long, it's been ice cream all my life. I could eat ice cream, breakfast, lunch, and
Yeah,
supper
me
and be
too.
totally happy.
When you met him, wasn't he a little more attractive because he owned an ice cream manufacturing company?
No, I
Okay.
like this singing voice.
Okay. All right. I remember a good old
So
Rod.
serious.
What flavor do you eat?
All of them. We, the last one we had when my daughter was here, she wanted ice cream and she picked it out. It was raspberry cookie dough, not cookie dough, raspberry,
Chocolate chip.
no,
Oreo?
yeah, Oreo, raspberry Oreo cookie.
No, I've never had that.
Black raspberry,
Oh, I love black.
Well, yeah, okay.
very good.
No, chocolate.
Hadn't had
Forbidden
that one,
chocolate.
hadn't had that one before.
Well, I discovered my new favorite at the 5th grade ski trip. So we took the kids skiing 5th grade up to King Pine. On my way home, instead of coming through Acton, it's a lot quicker for me to get home to go through Cornish. And there's a place called Fairground Pizza up there.
I keep seeing that.
And they had, I am not kidding you, they had a Chinese food pizza. And it was a poo-poo platter on a pizza. And the crab rangoons were there and everything. And it was
the
like 2 meals
pizza?
in one. It's crazy. I'm telling you, I don't have any stock or ownership in the place. But if you ever get there, order it. I was blown away by what I got. Yeah, I even took a picture of it, sent it to a friend, said, you won't believe what this is. Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you, everybody. That was great. I'm always thinking of how can we just introduce each other and come up with something. So thank you for being so playful and fun with these introductions. I'll remind us that we have some norms, and there's 6 strive statements that we'll keep in mind. I'll also go over the calendar, and then we'll get right on into business. Our strive statements, will strive to work together as a community that values the education our children receive at AES. We will strive to be fully present at the meetings by becoming familiar with the materials and by being attentive. We'll strive to invite and welcome the contributions of every member and listen to each other. We'll strive to be involved to our individual level of comfort. Each of us is responsible for airing disagreements during the meeting rather than carrying those disagreements outside the meeting. We'll strive to operate in a collegial and friendly atmosphere, and we'll strive to be responsible for examining all points of view. We are on a schedule that's going to work for us, I believe. We're at the 227 meeting tonight where we have budget articles and then warrant and finance will vote on those articles after. That will not happen tonight because we missed a meeting and we need to use the placeholder. So we will do that on 3/6, which is a week from tonight. Okay, so we should be done a week from tonight because these are the last two articles we need to talk about to get the expense side done. And then the following week, we will go over the entire budget, expense with revenues, look at the over-under of everything, and make some decisions at that meeting in regards to adopting a budget, okay? So we're super close, all right? And everything else, I believe, is moving forward is still the same. We only missed one meeting, the weather's been pretty good to us, so
So let me get this straight. We're meeting next week.
we're meeting next week.
Okay, and then the week after that is our regular school
It's
committee.
a regular school committee
And
meeting.
We'll go into budget afterwards.
If what we can
Yes.
do is you're gonna make the recommendations and the articles as written. We're hoping to have that done on the 6th, which is next week.
Okay, so.
You know, but we can push it out to the school committee meeting. I'm just looking to see if we will still, we're supposed to, Wednesday, the 3/12, the final warrant to selectmen for signatures. I still think that's very doable.
Myself, John.
Yeah.
I would rather stay on the schedule we got.
Yeah.
And if all possible, we can make our recommendations on the school warrant next week.
That would be the 6th, yeah.
I would think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be in a good place. The only thing that we need to do is, and it depends on where the Q&A goes tonight, is we gotta tighten up some things in regards to the warrants. So I've asked Paula to go ahead and get going on those with where we already are. Leave the numbers kind of as X's for right now, but get the language right, get the warrant articles. For example, there'll be that additional article now that we decided will be technology, because I pulled it out of the budget, so it'll be raise and appropriate, whatever the dollar amount is that Matt told us about.
Yeah.
But I believe that we should have all of that business done a week from tonight.
So we could, I say we could, the school committee will fill in the numbers that night
Yeah, pretty much.
into the warrant.
Right, because that's the 6th. We don't need to get that warrant over until the 12th, so we still.
No, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it
But
gives
if the
Paula
school
almost a
committee
week.
With Paula
Yeah.
inserts the numbers
Yeah.
that night,
Yeah.
and they move forward with it, and we'll move forward with it.
Yep,
So the committee will vote on the warrant
Oh.
at next week.
a week from tonight.
Yeah.
That's the
6th,
plan.
yeah.
I don't,
Okay.
yeah, we got a little bit of work to be doing between now, well, we got quite a bit of work to be doing between now and then, but that's when we'll really kind of, this will be the budget that we move forward to the town. Well, to the selectmen, to the town.
You
Yeah.
know, it'd be nice to get a
Yep.
lot done.
I'm really glad we put that placeholder meeting in because, you know, snow did arrive this winter. It didn't last winter. Okay. Okay, so what we're gonna do, a quick reminder to everybody, I think everybody that's here tonight has been to a meeting, so to kind of get the flow of how it works, we work from left to right. I am on Article 12, Nutrition, which you got tonight, and it works left to right with the source code, and then, you know, what we spent the year before, what our actual is this year, what our budget is this year, what our budget proposed is for next year, the difference in dollars, the difference in percent, and then those notations at the end are really helpful. Nutrition is really straightforward. I mean, there's not a lot of mystery here. And actually, for a little bit, you can look at it yourself because it's only 2 lines, and everything's flat. There are no changes, and we made a change last year, right, Paula?
Right.
I know we made a change, but I don't know the actual language of what we did. It had to do with a grant,
A
right?
grant.
Yeah.
So
Could you?
nutrition is technically a grant, so we moved all of the expenses into the grant. So it's not part of our operating budget. So this is just 2 lines in case we need something for nutrition. But other than that, everything is in the grant.
And nutrition is an article in the budget as well as there's the revenue side of that.
Yes, yeah.
Which we'll talk about next
Yeah.
week. We're not getting into revenues till the very end.
Yeah.
Okay? Not a lot of mystery here. It's the same thing. It's a photocopy, okay, pretty much. The next one's pretty robust because it's not all of our teachers, but it's most. Some of our people that are on teachers' contracts, for instance, the nurse and the social worker, they're on the teacher's contract, but they're not in here. We already did that in Article 6. So some teachers are pulled out, but most are here, okay? So Paula and I went over this earlier. It's pretty straightforward. Your top number is your 23 teachers, including the Title I teacher. It's salaries to paid professional teachers. And as you can see, the proposed budget for next year is $1,000,004, and the difference is we're up $62,704, or a 4.5% increase in the teachers in this cost center. Now the salaries paid to yep. Yep.
But I think some people might construe that as they got a 4.5.
No. When we went
I
over
just
that
wanted
the
to make
last school
sure,
meeting.
yeah.
So Paul and I, and that's true, Paul and I talked about it. I was waiting to see if there was a question, but we went over the CBA last time and did a
Right.
very thorough job at adopting that contract with what each year the increase is. This doesn't match up directly with any of the years. And the reason is next year a teacher, say Paula was on a bachelor's step whatever, but now she's on the bachelor's 15 because she now has 15 credits of college. That changes as that education changes, and every year somebody we call it moves to the right. So we have bachelor's plus 15, master's plus 15, and that's kind of how our scale works. So every year we have so many people taking classes, it's bound that somebody's going to move over a bit, which
Plus-
changes the total.
Plus, every year, a teacher moves one step because they've been here for an additional year.
Right.
Right, up to the 20th step.
Correct.
Then there's a longevity piece that carries forward, and
Yeah.
steps 15 through 20 have a longevity
We have
and a step.
4 longevity
Four
steps.
longevities, right.
Yeah.
And you did a thorough job last time, but yes, Judy, that's why it's not exactly one of the numbers if somebody has
That's why
more
it's not that
credits.
3.5%.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
okay. Now, this next one is salaries paid to instructional aides or assistants. This is the non-special ed paraprofessionals, ed techs we have in the building. We have a couple of them that don't work in special ed. They work in Title I and in pre-K. And as you can see, it's $74,000 roughly for this year, up $6,000 or 8.91%. Let me caution you that that contract is not done and it's not set at 8.9% because of any contract guessing or anything we're doing. I'm going to let Paula explain, and you don't probably have to get into the numbers as much, but what the state law is. But the minimum wage for ed techs by state law has changed. So no matter what we do in collective bargaining, which we really can't talk about at this meeting, no matter what we do, we can talk about what the state law is because it's a state law, and we have a duty to raise the bar for that particular group.
Right.
So you can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, so currently, right now, in Ed Tech 1, Step 0 is the base is $16.31, I believe. The new law, it has to be moved up to $18.50.
58?
51 cents, 51 cents.
51.
18.51, so we had to raise everyone's pay. by
Well,
that.
the law is that the ed techs have to be 125%.
125% minimum wage.
Yeah, so we have to start there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they also have steps, just like the teachers
Yeah.
do, so every year, everybody graduates a step, gets a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And they also have 3 levels where if they have a high school diploma, they're an Ed Tech 1. If they have an associate's degree, they're an Ed Tech 2. And if they have a bachelor's degree, it's an Ed Tech 3. Right?
Not
something like
degrees,
that.
it's the number, it's the
Credit
number.
hours.
of
Credit
hours.
hours.
Credit
Sorry.
hours, yes.
60 and 90.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple in here. Now that also affects, that doesn't mean we only have 2 ed techs in this particular unit. We've already gone over the other ed techs, which is the majority of them are in special ed. I mean, that's where all the others are. So depending on where collective bargaining goes and this law, we already know the law for this particular group, we're gonna have to make some budget adjustments before we get to the final budget next week around that other group. Okay?
John?
Yeah.
So, to come up with this 1851, it has to be minimum, but then it's minimum plus whatever, wherever the particular ed tech is.
Right, it's, the base is.
The basis, yeah,
Yeah. That's exactly right, Joyce.
okay.
Okay?
And that's not that has not been settled yet.
No. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I won't get into the weeds about that right now, but, yeah. Well, when we have more to talk about, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, well,
How's
good
that?
idea.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that.
The starting pay has to be.
Salaries of temporary employees paid to substitutes. So this is our substitute line. As you can see, we put 32.5 in there for substitutes, and that's substitutes across the board for the entire organization. And I'll tell you, right now, we're doing okay for this time of year, but all you need to do is throw a maternity leave in, right? You throw a maternity leave in and you got yourself a long-term sub for a long time. And then, I would say it's a rare day, if not a day, where there isn't a sub in the building. And we have 57 employees, so it makes sense that on any given day, you're gonna have at least one sub, if not more. But that number right now for this year is right now, no maternity leave, I guess. And
Not yet.
we've seen those before, not yet, we've seen those before. So that's flat, no change. The employee, okay, so this is where I'm not gonna spend the time to get into the benefits, the tax, or workers' comp and retirement benefits, but if you go with me down lines, we're gonna go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then on the 8th line that starts with source 2320, we're back into things we can discuss, because those are all fixed costs that are based on taxes and retirement. So source 2320, as you can see, is $3,227.45. It's up $400 or 14.42%, and that's repairs and equipment on like the pianos listed there. There's a few other items that need regular maintenance.
Wait a sec.
This is wrong.
Which one's wrong?
The notation is right.
The notation is
Yes,
correct,
yeah.
but
Okay.
the
So
retirement
it's not retirement
contributions.
It says retirement, it's the same as above, the line above, so I'll fix that.
Okay. Well,
Good
there,
catch.
see what we're finding? It's good.
Yeah.
The next one, Paula, was repairs, maintenance, services. Okay, so there's your double, right? So it's flat at $1,000. Source 4,300. So the retirement was up 1442. The repairs and maintenance is flat.
Well, the first the repairs and maintenance, the 3,327, that is for like the piano.
Right.
This repairs and maintenance is more for like.
Is this the machine that
the
you were the laminator we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay. So will you make that notation change as noted from the school committee members that picked up on the retirement
Yeah.
piece? Thank you. The rentals, Paula, you talked to me about this, and I said, go ahead. The rationale behind just taking that out of the
We
budget?
haven't touched these in the last 3 years, so I just took them out. We haven't used it for anything in the last 3 years, so. I just-
So we used to rent things like coffee
Yeah.
machines and things like
Yeah, we
that.
don't.
Now we
Yeah.
have, now
We have
we're on
contracts.
Contracts for
Contracts.
everything, yeah.
We made an adjustment, Paula, thank you. I see that we moved up to 91
Yeah.
students. The source 5610 is our tuition to Sanford High School. Remember, we have a responsibility for our high school kids to get them to Sanford High School, which a majority of our students go to Sanford High School. We still have many years left of our contract with Sanford High School. And when you take the 8th graders of this year, that'll be freshmen next year, you move the seniors who graduate out, we're looking at paying for 91 students at the high school next year. And again, that is the rate that we pay is the year-old cost on that the state sets. The state sets the cost of education for secondary students, which is high school. That's what secondary education means. That's 9 through 12 at one level, and they set primary education or elementary education, which is K through 8 at another level. So we use the cost, we'll use this year's cost for next year, and next year's cost will probably go up. Our rule is a 1-year-old cost on that.
Excuse me.
Fine, the travel we have in here is travel and conferences for teachers. It's flat at $2,000, no change. Instructional supplies is all the supplies for the classroom, for the teachers, pretty much in the school. You back out the nurse, you back out the social worker, but this is all your classroom teachers at 21,100, which is flat. No change there. That's a notation. Okay, the next one is equipment, furniture, instructional, no?
I fixed everybody else's but yours.
Well, what's it say?
Testing.
It's for testing.
Thank you for that, ma'am, I
Can I borrow yours?
Yeah.
Oh, she didn't change mine.
Mine says testing too.
I wanna just see what the
Should
next
say
one is.
assessment.
Oh, okay,
Testing.
it's supposed to say testing.
Testing.
I'm gonna let you talk about it. It's small money. Assessment testing is just, it looks like it just went up, Paula, from 150%, or it went up $300.
Yes.
Okay, I got the same numbers. I got the wrong category. Okay.
Right, That's mine.
And is that just because our assessment services went up?
They did, and sometimes we get some supplies for them to prepare and.
Yeah. As if any of you follow the school committee meetings, you'll see progress monitoring. When we're not in the budget season, we don't do it. When we're not in the budget season, we do it. But when we're in the budget season, we try to keep our school committee meetings pretty short for these meetings. But Mr. Ward's been doing an excellent job, and Patty Damaris the year before, and Lori before her have all done excellent jobs at how we doing with our assessments, because we do assess quite often, and we can show growth, which is great. And we have shown growth, which is great. The next one is books and periodicals. So this is non-library books and periodicals. This is classroom supply books and periodicals at $13,700. Looks like it's up $200, or just about 1.5%. And the equipment expense for classroom instruction has dropped significantly, Paula.
Oh, yes, that dropped because last year we budgeted for a kiln for the
Aha.
art teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So we purchased that, so we took that amount out for
Yeah.
this year.
Okay, so we had the art kiln, which is now being used, as a matter of fact.
Didn't the parent-teachers group also?
They also helped, yes.
They kicked in
Yeah.
some of that. Yeah.
Yep.
That was quite a thing to move. We needed a portable hoist. That's
Yeah.
quite a,
Yeah.
it's quite an event. Andy did a great job.
It was quite an event when we moved that one in too, John,
Like that.
the old one.
The old one, I bet it was. Yeah. It's kind of like you moved it in and then built the art room around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Dues and fees is flat at $400. So the next one, 8,500, is co-curricular and extracurricular field trip transportation. This is all field trips pre-K through 8, flat at just under 19,000. And we've done some fall trips. We don't tend to do a lot in the winter, but most of our field trips will happen as soon as it's nice out again in March, April, May, and of course the last whatever weeks we have in June.
Why the disparity in the numbers?
Between,
Between, like, the,
go back FY, I gotta
FY,
flip it too.
24-25 is $861.
24-25 is
So we're
4,000.
budgeting almost 19,000.
That's what we're in now.
Right, we've used $861
All right, but
out of 18,775.
the prior year was under 5,000.
And was that an actual?
That was the actual, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So that's a great question. So we have an actual of 2 years ago, 4824. We have a budget of almost 19,000. We have an actual of 861. 861 doesn't surprise me, given the fact that we're not into the field trip season. Great question. Is that an area where we might want to look at?
Yes.
Because each teacher is budgeted the same amount for field trips, and some use them every year, some use them every other year, so I guess.
Oh, no, that's the other page. Let's say the column on, that's different.
Yeah, you
That's
got
a
it.
Is there
different
a
chart.
cost share with this?
So this was
Students?
based on what the teachers asked for this year, this total?
Well, they each get $500 for field trips,
Okay.
unless they are planning something special or.
And if a cohort goes, like a cohort of 4 classes goes somewhere, they'll pool that, and
Yeah.
then sometimes somebody will want to do a big event. Like I remember years ago, this goes way beyond this budget. Sandra went to Boston. She goes to Boston all the time in 5th grade. That gets a little expensive because we get a good bus, not a school bus. So, 3rd grade might be like, we're not using all ours, so Paula will, it's all field trip money, it's all in one line. It's parceled out at $500 per classroom. I think Leslie brings up a good point, though. I mean, it wasn't brought to my attention until, that's why we do this. That's why we sit around and talk about it. I'm gonna not make a recommendation, but I'm open to them. Steve had a question too
Yeah.
before we do that. I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
my only question was, is there a cost share with the students?
Did the kids have to come up with some money for a
Kick
trip?
in money
No.
towards? Okay.
No, sir, no. Historically, can you give us anything beyond that year? Or is that tough? Because I know you've only been here a couple of years, if you'd
I
have
can
that.
run some.
The other thing is, we can also look into it and get back to you next week.
Yeah, I
which-
can do a more.
Why don't we do
more
that?
of a
I think
historical-
that's a concerning question that, I think until we have the data or what we look like over, say, the last 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
that'll help us, and also understand that some years diesel fuel was very expensive and our cost per mile was higher than, say, it might be the following year. Okay,
Would COVID have covered any of that?
Not on this chart.
not, that wouldn't have, yeah, that shouldn't be still alive out this far.
I'm so sorry.
You go ahead and take that, Joyce, it's okay.
John, while we're doing that, can we also jump back
Yep.
to 6,400 books and periodicals?
Books and periodicals in the
'Cause that's
classroom.
another one that the 23-24 actual was,
A third of it.
yeah.
Okay, so let's make a note, Paula, that we're gonna look at 6,400, that the actual of the furthest year out is a fraction of the, of this year's budget, the one we're living in now, and why, and the same, that's 6,400 and 8,500.
Does that include
I
if
will
we
just-
change programs?
I will just say this,
Okay,
sometimes, they will overspend in their supplies because they're not using their books. So if you look at supplies,
Yeah, I
it's
did see
generally
that.
overspent.
Yeah.
So we budgeted 21,000, we spent 26,000. So they don't always, like the older grades don't buy as many books, they buy more supplies, science supplies and that type of thing.
mm-hmm,
So that it kind of evens out that way.
Would changing the science program in the lower school for new materials be part of that number? It might even be a big part of
Mhm.
the increase where we're
Yes.
changing.
Yes.
Anytime you put in, anytime you put in a new program like iReading or iReady Math or whatever, you have to get all the materials that go
Yeah.
with that for each grade, so.
So I was thinking that might
it
be where
would-
the
it
biggest
would
part of the increase.
Vary from year to year.
oh, it's fine, you probably have a reason to have that on, that's fine with us. So we'll take a historical record on that,
Yeah.
and I need to make sure that we do that at the front of the agenda for the next meeting, because we'll be tying things up next week. Okay? Thank you. Last one is miscellaneous expenditures over in the assessment, and it's not assessment and testing column, it is the narrative column. School programs, theater programs, guest speakers and presenters. I did this in the meeting earlier where the actual from a couple of years ago was 2,000, but yet we have 9,000 in the budget. So we cut it to 5,000, so it's minus $4,000. I guess an example is like last year we had a bicycle guy come, it was really cool, and of course that's a stipended kind of thing, an honorarium is what we call it. If we bring, we used to have the Shakespearean theater people come in, and that was very pricey, and we haven't done that in a while, but it was well worth it. So because we're not really doing as much of that, I felt that cutting that by almost half and going from 9 to 5, we still have $5,000 seems to be fine because we only spent $21,3883 the year before. I didn't quite catch on to that with those other two cost centers, so we'll do that as a group, okay? And then if you look down, you've got your totals. So overall, again, expense side only, 8.75% overall for Article 2, which is pretty good. Any last questions on those articles? Because I kind of want to open it up to a discussion, but I'd like to also cap it so that, what time does that say? I'm at a weird angle.
5:35.
Let's shoot for no later than 6 if possible. I don't, if we can. That would be great, because it's just that I know a lot of us have been out almost every evening this week, actually. So Friday will be our only night off together. I feel like I live with you guys.
In the
that'd be-
conference room.
You have a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm just like, I see more of you guys than I do my wife. She forgot my name, so. Gonna go patch that up, Jeanette.
If we're gonna try to keep it short, John, why don't I go first?
Well, either that or Dennis, I was gonna say, I think there's a phone call for you down in the front office and take 20 minutes to answer it. And then I'll be sure to get out of here at 6
You
o'clock.
moved the phone, didn't you, John? I'm not gonna find it.
Go ahead, Dennis, this is open forum.
There's a, first question
Yeah.
is,
What was
Mr.
it?
Kittredge came in and asked about some, improvements to the
Uh-huh,
stuff in the gym.
uh-huh.
Is that considered in this budget at this point?
I don't believe it is.
No,
No.
okay. Phil Caruso came to our warrant finance meeting the other night and did a very nice presentation on value. And what that was about was the value of the particular, say like the school, compared to the value of some project that Dennis Lawn is doing. You know what I mean? When you look at stuff, you have to look at the value of the program and what you're getting out of it. And the value is worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
Okay.
And that's reality. There was a question brought up at our meeting about the cost per student in this school. How it's around $25,000, and around us is $20,000. And this is just explaining a little bit with my research and what I've listened to, watching the press conference out of Augusta, that the average cost per student in the state is $26,000. So what I'm saying is to the school committee, they've done a great job keeping the cost down, considering where the state of Maine placed in the tests throughout the country, very last.
At the fourth grade.
And not much, it was even with the other one, the 8th grade. And the fact that what I've observed with Brandon's presentations and stuff, and Patty's in the past, my compliments to the school, where they are, when the reading was 24 percentile or something, at least the numbers they gave out that I saw yesterday. And that goes back to the value we're getting out of this for Acton School is very, very good. And hopefully what I said tonight will answer some of the questions, because what I have the tendency to do is bring questions to the next meeting, the conversation we had from the last meeting, just to clarify it's something that isn't answered. And the other question I have is on the technology part that we're looking at. And this may be all gone, but I thought we used to have a technology reserve
We do.
account.
We do.
We do.
It is,
Not a lot.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna say 10,000, it's probably somewhere there.
It was
It's
around 10.
around 10, it's not a huge
10,000.
amount.
Yeah.
It's not like our special ed reserve, like, that's a fairly
So
significant
you
one.
wouldn't be using that?
Well, Matt, were you here when Matt talked
Yeah.
about the grant?
Yeah,
I think we're gonna kind of sit and see what that looks
see
like.
what that looks like.
Because there may not be a need.
Might not be.
I think the technology reserve, Dennis, and I didn't create it, I wasn't here, it was the year or two before I started, is break, fix, emergency.
Yeah,
You know, you had servers go down,
I
you
think
have
you're right.
no
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
to reach for some money now, and instead of going to the town and
Yeah.
raise and appropriate money to fix the computer, we thought 10,000 would be enough to fix and keep
Yeah.
us operational.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Bob
I-
Hadley started that, I think.
And if the grant gets, if he gets the grant, then there is a piece for us to pay too.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
having
In
that
kind.
reserve.
No, I appreciate
Yeah.
that, we're just getting close.
Yeah.
And some people do watch what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I try to, get that out to everybody.
Yep.
And this is just a little more information so the school committee knows. The paperwork we got last night at the selectmen's meeting, that at the end of the year, I believe this is the number, I don't have it in front of me right now. The municipal budget and school budget together is going up, I think 14%, 15%.
So the school budget increase has not been determined yet. That'll all be pretty much determined next
Jennifer read
week.
that email that you sent at the.
Right, and I purposely
last
didn't
night.
put any numbers in it,
No.
right?
I
Did you notice
appreciate
that? It was, yeah,
Right,
because
no,
I
this-
can't, I don't have
The
them.
selectmen put in a placeholder number, correct?
We didn't, have
6%.
anything in our presentation last night
Okay.
to do with the school.
But
Okay.
on, but
That
on
was in that thing, John.
on your papers though,
You guys passed out.
on the papers that you passed out, didn't it say that the school was
I think
6%?
that was last year. I think that was just a placeholder.
Placeholder.
But, yeah, I mean, we didn't give any
Okay.
numbers.
Okay.
Very good, yeah. Like I said, it really that work needs to be done next week.
No, I appreciate that, and now everybody else.
We all have 19 minutes.
17
Yeah.
So they put in a placeholder for the school of, I see a FY 2026 of $5,936,814
As a budget,
as a budget for the school raised for education.
did they do a column of up or down from the year before, Dave? I don't
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
data. I don't have it in front of me.
So they had 5 million last year, for this year, 5,600,768. Then they, apparently it must be a placeholder, I don't know where they came up with it, but for this year, for next year, what I just said, an increase of 336,046 for a 6% increase.
6%.
Last year's budget was 6,629,000.
So I don't know where this
you
is
got
coming
that.
from.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, I don't know how important it is for our piece right now. I don't know if we need to belabor on it, but the base number isn't quite what we spent last year, or had for budget last year.
Right. I mean,
So-
that's not.
Okay.
It was 6 million
6
last
million.
year.
Yeah.
Six, yeah.
It was just, the reason why I brought it up was just so that every department should know what's going on
Sure.
elsewhere,
Sure.
even though it shouldn't affect what you guys
Yeah,
do and need. I just wanted the information
Okay.
out there so
All right.
that there wouldn't be misinformation.
okay.
Oh, I see.
I think it would be really great too if so many people could see the presentation that Brandon did a couple of weeks ago, because that shows definite actual growth in different grades
Yeah, that's good.
and that, I mean, you know, because we're gonna hear it, we hear it every year, well, you know, our kids we're not doing that well, we don't rate up, that Maine's way down, blah, blah, all that, but I think if people could see that presentation, and if all of you haven't seen it, if you go back and pull up the video of it and see actually what's, the growth has been just since September
Yep.
to now, it's,
Be the February meeting, yeah.
it's pretty impressive, yeah.
Two weeks ago.
John actually sent me the
Yeah.
PowerPoint presentation, which I sent to all of Warren Finance and the
Oh,
selectmen,
great.
so.
Oh, good.
That information is out there.
Great. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I actually referenced Brandon's presentation in my weekly update,
Great.
Good,
Good,
thank
good.
you.
Yeah,
and the selectmen were
Yeah.
quite pleased
good.
and surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
because
part of the
it's-
goal.
Yeah, because it's, you know, you're working towards all this, and when you actually see the results, then it's like, yes, we're doing what we need to be doing to move the kids to where they need to be, and so, yeah, that's good.
I have to say, when I first started looking at the school, because I've only been a resident for about 10 years, our test scores were very low. And then you came in, and they've been
Had
steadily
nothing to do
climbing.
with it.
Well, I'm just saying,
I couldn't
it's,
teach my way out of a wet paper bag. Don't kid yourself.
but you've instituted some changes, I think,
There's
that,
just-
you know, along with the school committee.
whole school,
that
everybody, yeah.
has,
Yeah.
you know, improved our test scores dramatically. So I just want, you know, to recognize that, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into that, to.
This
to-
is a great
to
little school.
Make those increases happen.
You know, and although Brandon's presentation was a dipstick just at a moment in time with the smaller class sizes, the smallest class sizes I've seen since I've been here, I think it's important to understand that that probably has a lot to do with it. And that as we look to a final budget, you're gonna hear me say two things. The town's been very generous to us. They've been very supportive of us, but also part of the equation is to keep our class sizes as small as we possibly can to get to where we need to be. Because I think the proof is there. Yeah, okay. Other questions? This is, we don't have to use up all Dennis's time that he wants to talk, but we could.
I got a phone call,
Okay.
this morning from a resident who wanted to know if the school committee was gonna have
Forum?
Forum?
Yeah.
Didn't we
Uh,
decide you weren't
Well,
going to early on?
We talked about it, we've done it for the last 2 years and nobody came.
I know,
so-
and that's what I told the individual who called me, and, he said, well, no one knew about it.
Oh, yeah,
So,
well,
well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I think we
So-
need to, I think, I think the best explanation for our budget comes out in our budget book.
Yeah.
That Paula puts together and puts
Yeah.
out, and it has everything, it has all this in it and more, and plus
Yeah.
explanations that go with it, so, we're not adverse to doing a forum, but if we wanted to do it just for him, maybe.
Yeah.
That's I told him,
No,
that
no,
the
that
public
was-
hearing
yeah,
is
yeah.
actually town meeting,
That's
because.
what, I was just gonna say that. I heard that at the beginning of our budget process.
Yeah.
Somebody said the public hearing is the town meeting, and that's the first time I've heard that, but it makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
But it is, I
It
mean,
is.
that's our
Yeah.
public hearing for all of, the municipal side too, so it's, anyway.
We do have a placeholder on the 27th
do.
for
I
this.
think we canceled it though.
Okay, this is
From
my
that-
original
From
sheet.
that
Yeah.
discussion.
Perfect.
I
I'll
mean,
get you
I just
that.
wanna make sure that I
First
give
week.
back,
Cancel that.
I'll get you.
Take off my
Okay.
calendar.
accurate information.
We're
We,
taking
uh,
So we're in agreement then?
We've done it
Okay.
every year, we've even had like PowerPoints, and we've had all things, and, this,
Okay.
here's the school
I'm fine with
committee,
that.
and
Yeah.
maybe some warrant and finance people, and that's all that
Yeah.
ever came, so
Yeah.
we decided not
I'll
to
just
try
let
to
them know
do
that
that.
town meeting.
But how
Right,
many
that's a great
booklets-
answer.
Yeah.
How many booklets do you print up to pass out around town?
I bet I passed out over 100 last year, it was a lot.
That's right, there's at
We had a
least
lot of people
5
show up.
places that
Yeah.
they bring them, yeah.
That
We
have
had-
the budget books.
Right.
That was the that, if you remember, the vote last year was that crazy Saturday during that storm, and there
Yeah.
was no power in places, and we still had well over 120 people in that gym, probably
I
more.
think considering what's going on at the municipal level, I think that the town meeting's gonna draw a good crowd
Sure.
again this year.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Because they've changed quite a bit, the way they're gonna be doing things,
Okay.
and what they're gonna be voting on, and they're gonna put it on secret ballot in June. So, some of the other stuff might raise a little, I'm hoping, be like it used to be.
Joyce, I know you had your hand up twice.
Yeah, actually, as you probably know, Lee Robichaud isn't here.
Right.
And I'm not him.
Okay.
But he did ask me if I would ask 2 questions for him. And this is going backwards a little bit, but Lee's asking you, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. He's curious, as we see, we still don't have the techs. We haven't come to any conclusion on their contracts yet, correct?
Yes,
We
the
have.
teachers we
The
have.
teachers were
The
done.
teachers you
Professional
have.
one.
Right, and that was voted on in public.
The support staff, we started later than we started with the
Okay, but
teachers.
the
Much
fact
later.
is, there is not a definite,
Not yet.
With
anything
one of the
yet.
CBAs, the other one's fine.
With
yes,
the
the other
support
one's
staff.
fine, but,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
affects the budget.
Yeah.
So he wanted to know if you had a particular goal in mind.
Well, here's the tricky part. I'm glad you brought this up, because this is how collective bargaining works. The first thing is we saw in the 2 ed texts that were in this budget we looked at tonight,
Right.
that state law insisted that the tide needs to rise on minimum wage for the Ed Tech 1 level. So that impacts the CBA right there without
Right
even
there.
negotiating.
Yeah.
Because that's state law.
Right, right.
We need to have a budget by next week, and I think we have a meeting with them next week, but we're scheduled out till end of March with them. So my guess is we're not gonna have a CBA done by the time we have a budget done. So it's on us to put the answer is, it's on us to put a placeholder in there where we think we're gonna land, right? then everybody sees what it is and they go, well, there's the number they picked, but there's nothing you can do about that. And if you come up short, then you need to raise and appropriate later in the school year, at least before you get to about now, because you're
Right.
spending money and you can't cover it if you haven't raised and appropriated it.
Right.
It's the only thing you can do. When I first started here, the teacher's contract had not been settled, but the budget had been passed. And it got settled in the first couple of weeks in July that I was here. It was just a quick meeting and we were done.
Yeah.
But there was enough placeholder money there to cover that. So whoever was prior to me, and with some of you people that were on the school committee then, 10 years ago, had the foresight to put in a number that was credible but not crazy. So
I understand
that's
that.
how we do that, yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
daughter worked without a contract for 3 years.
Well, the
That-
thing
that
is, that's
was
tough because you work under the contract you have until the new one is
Exactly.
ratified and signed, and that might be, that might be well into the next school year.
So
And
this
then
one
you've
is
gotta,
accurate.
then you gotta do retroactive payments back, because I've done that too, I've been
Yeah.
involved in that.
Is that the
Yeah.
next figures yet?
Oh,
Oh, no, because we haven't signed it yet.
The other thing, he was curious if it were possible to get a copy of the capital plan, Brendan, and you might have improvements.
So that's our long-range planning committee.
Yes, long
So
range.
the LRP table, yes, we can make sure that you have that.
Okay,
Yeah.
he would like that.
Very good. And we'll give that directly to him, because I know how to get hold of Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
Paula,
very good.
one more note. I know I keep saying Paula, but
I'd
if
like
you
to
keep
have
me
that.
organized.
I'd like to have that too.
Yeah, it's gonna look a lot like what we're gonna ask for technology, that extra articles, where it is, because of I think it was 465,000 in the unassigned fund balance last year we used for capital improvements.
Yeah.
Boy, that took care of almost everything on our capital improvements list,
I
so
was
that's
gonna ask
done.
you that.
That's done, it's more technology now, yeah.
Right, and I think the only thing you have is the sidewalks?
So, yeah, we
maybe?
still have the money for it, we just haven't done it yet,
Oh,
and
okay.
Andy's ready to roll with that when things warm up.
We have,
That's
yeah, we
awesome.
have a contractor, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
great, great.
Dave has a question.
So is it appropriate at this time to approach the finance committee with some information that kind of piggybacks on what Dennis was just saying?
It's open, yeah, Dave,
I don't
I would
know,
say it is.
Because I didn't know if you guys.
Are you
were
okay?
just
We
amongst
only know
yourselves.
that you talk almost as long as Dennis.
I have an introduction, I want to tell a little about myself.
Yeah, give us your resume.
What's your favorite
Please.
food, Dave?
38 years ago.
Oh, you've heard
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
So I just want to share something real simple with you that kind of piggybacks on what Dennis was saying, because, and it's real simple, but I think when you're talking about, when he was mentioning value, when you're looking at value and looking if your public official, if your school committee, is kind of being responsible, one simple indicator is when you compare it, comparing like the school to the rest of the town, is just going to your tax bill. And the school committee's already heard my spiel, so, you look at your tax bill and there's the breakdown in your tax bill of what goes where. So, I was curious for another project a couple of years ago on some of this stuff, and I've continued to be curious because of all the stuff that comes up that, Dennis was just talking about. So I could have gone out further, I took our little surrounding towns, you got Acton, and then down here you got Lebanon, which is part of the Noble School District, and over here you got Shapley, which is part of the Massabesic School District. So, and I compared them with the percent of the property taxes that go to schools, comparing it to us, another little small town, similar demographics to them, just our own little independent school district. So I just want to take a minute and share it, because I think it's obviously applicable to you guys as finance committee members, and you can take it and throw it away or use it as notes. I mean, afterwards, it's pretty basic, and I think it's kind of telling.
Thank you.
Do you have
And
one- do you have one for
Excuse me.
John?
I think I do.
Make sure Lee gets one through Joyce, I guess. Are you
Yeah.
giving Lee his book?
Yeah.
Book
I've got his
So-
book stuff.
I'm just gonna look over the shoulder because I don't have it memorized here. So I think, when you look at it, this is the 3-year average. You see Acton in the left column, the percent of the property taxes in Acton that went to school, you see it right down through. It's pretty simple, and then I did a 3-year average. It averages at 60%. Now, last year, of course, this does vary. If you look at this out, 5, 6, 7 years, it goes up and down a little bit, but it averages, the average has stayed fairly consistent. So we're at 60% of your property taxes go to the schools. You go over to Shapley last year they went down a little bit. They had kind of a high the year before. Their average is 64.5%. And in Lebanon, it is, as you can see, the 3-year average is 81.2%. So when you start looking at what you're spending on the school, where your property taxes are going, and you look at the percentages, again, it comes down to that. I'm loving it. I'm going to use that value thing. It comes down to the value. I mean, you can see value in that, and you can see that your officials are, not out of line with what other small towns are doing. I even looked. I didn't realize that Newfield, which is another bordering town, generally one of the the lowest tax rate, one of the top two lowest tax rates in York County, and we're not far from there either. But they just got their stuff online. I just realized it, but I didn't have time to put it on here. And they're right. I did their average real quick, and it was 59%, and which is still right in line where we are here in Acton. So I got Newfield too, just not on there. So I just think it's really good food for thought, so I wanted to share it since you're the finance committee.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind that we mentioned yesterday when we were talking with David is that one thing that really helps us immensely is being a donut hole, not being connected with another district where they tell you what your share is. They'll tell you what your share of your share of the school budget, like with Lebanon, they'll say, you're gonna pay this much, Berwick pays this much. And they don't really have any control. They don't have the control because the boards are made up of people from all districts, and they all have, of course, different things that they'd like to see done. And the smaller your representation is on that board, the less likely you're to get anything that you really want to get. So I think, I know it was a real hassle for us at the time. We beat our heads against the wall and went to Augusta and did all kinds of things to make sure that we got that donut hole exemption, and that really has saved the town so much money on the education budget. There's no question about it. And it's also allowed us to do so much more here at our Acton Elementary School. It's allowed us to make decisions on our own without having to go through a big district to get approval for doing whatever we want to do.
To pat myself on the back a little bit, I encourage everybody to watch the Warrant Finance Committee meeting we had the other night, because that question was asked about why we don't join another school district so we save some money.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it as good as Judy, but I tried to explain why we are where we are. This is something the town decided to do. The small class size is something the town decided to do many years ago. And I explained the class sizes we could have in the school because the square footage of the rooms even. And
State law also says.
yeah, that's what the state says.
What the state
And
says.
so hopefully people spend the time watching that, and then our next meeting, you can tell me everything that I've said that wasn't really true.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't understand why we're separate like ourselves, when the consolidation law went in, I don't remember what year it was, but everybody was required to join with another school district. And Acton, as you know, is a very low receiving town because the state thinks that we're a very rich town and our, the property valuations are up with all the lakes and things, and so we don't get much back from the state. Well, Sanford didn't want to go in with us because they're a high receiver, because they get a lot back from the state because they have a lot of underprivileged people. No district around us wanted anything to do with us, okay? So then they said, all right, well, we'll try to find somebody for you then. And we said, okay. So I kid you not, one of the things they came up with was Kittery. Oh, and I'm thinking, oh, that sounds really good. Yeah, that's.
An hour
yeah,
drive.
I mean, yeah, it's 45 minutes probably to get to Kittery from here. And then they wanted us to team up with Wells, which is another wealthy community, which, you know, if we had gone in with Wells, we wouldn't have had much to say about what our people are gonna get, and they would be setting like the salaries, and Wells salaries, I mean, not that I wouldn't like to have our teachers get a lot of salary, but Wells salaries were way higher than ours, and we would have been required to bring ours at the same rate as theirs. And so we worked really very hard with the Commissioner of Education, and said nobody wants us and we don't fit any place, and can't you see that we're really they called them donut holes, that we need to be independent. And she finally said, well, after we went up and met with her in Augusta, she said, well, if you do this and this and this and this and get it back to me, then I'll see what I can do. So at the time, Bob Powers was here as our superintendent, and he and I spent a whole day and we went through the list and we did everything that she asked us to do and sent it to her. And then we didn't hear, then we finally heard again, and she said that we were not approved for a donut hole. So after that, I wrote her a fairly strong worded letter that said, you know, you told us such and such, and I think you need to reconsider this because you need to keep your word for what you said. We did everything you asked us to do. And she was leaving to go someplace. She was going out west someplace up to a new job. The day she left, she sent word to us at Acton that we had the donut hole approval.
Wow.
So that's how we got where we are now, and why we're not tied into another big system, which would be much more costly.
I think that actually was acknowledged by the select board. And, I mean, my thing when it came up at our meeting is I said, we don't need to assume anybody else's debt.
Well, yeah, there's no debt service here.
Yes,
That's another
right.
attractive thing
Yeah.
about this
Another- I
district.
mean,
Zero.
Just think of the
No
the debt.
bonds, nothing.
Nothing.
No.
And why would we want it?
And going back to the value,
Yeah.
our test scores would not be as high as they are if we were under the jurisdiction of another school district. That's just,
Because we
That's
wouldn't have
reality.
the freedom with our curriculums that we have now to bring in the programs that we know are working really well with our
And
kids.
change
So-
from a year to year. The teachers said, what, PLTW isn't working, let's find something else.
Exactly.
So they looked, and 3 months later, they're like, okay, we found something better, let's do it.
Try that.
the speech at news conference that Jim Libby did is really worth watching about the education. Smart man, as we all know, we did elect him. But even though I give him a hard time, the candidates night, that time there, we made him a little nervous, but it's really worth watching if you're involved in the education system. What they would see is what the changes they want to make up in Augusta, and they're pushing for. Well worth watching.
Is there anything else? I just want to report out on one thing I'm doing tomorrow that will help with the budget. At least
You want
it'll
rat
certainly-
time?
Oh yeah, thanks, Dennis. Night, everybody. I'm meeting with that was great, Dennis. Got Dave laughing. That's always good, especially if it's on me. So thanks. Tomorrow afternoon, right around assembly time, so I won't be here for assembly. I'm going to Biddeford to talk to the transportation company to see if we can renegotiate our transportation contract for next year, because we've already passed transportation, we've looked at it, so I might be coming back to you next week saying I met with them and it's reduced by X. Paula will put it in the formula for us, so I'm hoping we can get that cost down a little bit, so he's gonna have a face-to-face with me tomorrow afternoon. Okay, more to come on that.
Thank you all so very much.
I think we're all good then. Good night, everybody. Drive safely. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for keeping it short.
Speaking of you.
You're welcome, Dennis.